Every week we see comments from viewers who say, I would love to live the life that you guys are living, but I just can't because... But recently we've received hundreds of comments and stories through our email list from people just like you who are telling us how they're starting despite the odds. So in this video, we want to bust the 5 biggest myths that might be holding you back from living the self-sufficient life you've been dreaming of. I guess the reason we wanted to do this video is because when we started, we were looking for inspiration, and we're now in this really privileged position because we're not just homesteaders, but we're YouTubers, which means we're getting dozens of comments every day, every week. And a lot of them are truly inspiring and stories of people that are doing just what we're doing. But we get to see all that. I mean, I guess you guys control our comment section and you'd see it too, but then we've got other spaces like our Patreon page and our email list and people that are signing up for that and telling us their stories. And recently we were reading through a whole bunch of those comments and stories, and honestly, some of them just brought us to tears. But what it showed us the most was there are literally thousands of regular Aussies out there, just like you, just like us, who don't have a YouTube channel, who aren't sharing online their story, but they're doing it anyway. And they're doing it despite everything that seems like it might be stacked against them or reasons for why they might not be able to do it. And you know what one of those biggest myths is that they're doing it against all odds anyway? Is age. Honestly, one of the main myths to starting out in this lifestyle is that I've passed some certain age point where I just can't do it anymore. But do you know what? Heather is proof that this is just not true.
So Heather's probably the inspiration for the whole idea for this video, because when we read her comment, we were like, go you. Heather says she's in her 2nd year on 10 acres, starting from scratch, doing it on her own. She loves watching. She always picks up something that she can try from our videos. By the way, this is what she says: I am a 77-year-old female who has never been on a property. She's a city girl, and I attribute my good health to the time spent turning my land into a sustainable garden. I'm always learning.
Age is just no barrier. You know, before we came out here, we went and worked an agricultural rural job, and the person we were working for was a 70-year-old woman who had been doing it. She started in her 50s. And for us, that just showed us there really was no point in time at which once you've passed it, you kind of don't have permission to start. That's just not true. It doesn't matter what your age is, it's never too late to start.
My parents are in their late 60s and they're here starting from scratch alongside with us. They're hugely inspirational.
You know, a lot of people use this, but I wonder how many people believe it. They're saying that age is a mindset, or you are the age that you believe you are. But I've seen that, and when we get comments like this, it proves out that it's true. Age is not a restrictive number. In fact, if anything, it should be an inspiration that you're able to do what you're doing despite your age. And that's despite being too old or too young. There's no such thing in either direction.
Yeah, I love Chili Donella.
Yeah.
She is this awesome content creator. We'll link to her stuff. She's a young person who's moving towards this self-sufficient, regenerative agricultural lifestyle. And she's going across Australia interviewing people who are like big names in this space, trying to learn everything that she can for her future. Like, go you girl, you're awesome.
And you can just start to take inspiration. So despite your age, start to look for the inspiration that's going to encourage you to do this, you know, despite whatever age you are. I love this next comment that we got, because that's exactly what this couple are doing. And, you know, they're not letting their age difference, and they point out the difference in age between them and us, stop them from beginning the dreaming process, which is going to lead to the action step.
So Jan and Dean say we too are yearning to leave the city for an off-grid, quiet life. We are much older and have been married for 45 years, but the thought of peace and quiet appeals to us so much. It is pretty awesome.
So let that be your motivation. Let the dream of this be the thing that sits out in front, not your age or some arbitrary number that's going to somehow be a limiting belief that stops you from pursuing it. Myth number 2 is that you need the perfect block of land to live the self-sufficient lifestyle, and that's just not true. Not only do you not need massive amounts of land, acreage, but you don't even need the perfect block of land. I love this next comment we got.
This is from Lauren, and Lauren wrote to us and said that they have 125 acres in the mid-north coast of New South Wales, bordering on a river on a downward slope. So all of their friends said, don't buy that land. But they've used us as inspiration and took the plunge 6 months ago and purchased that land, even though it wasn't the ideal land. And they said this, the best decision they've ever made. We've been working hard on our veggie beds, solar, greenhouse chickens, and a multi-generational holding also. So they've got a lot of land, but it wasn't the perfect land, and that's okay because they're willing to put in the work to make it work for them.
And you know what, that's like this block that we're on right now. You've probably heard we're on 150 acres, but there's two truths, and that is a lot of it is unusable.
Yep.
In fact, we made a whole video about this. We called it, We Bought Land That Everyone Else Rejected.
And they did.
And not only that, we're barely using this space. I mean, we will eventually, but we're probably using all of 2 acres maybe.
Seriously.
As we get set up. So not only do you not need a lot of land, but you don't need to buy that ideal block of land. It's kind of all about how you see it and then how you use it. In fact, our very first block of land was, well, I guess our first homestead was like 1.5 acres. But even before that, when we started learning, we learned on a tiny little house block.
The homesteading mindset isn't about how much land you have. It's about becoming less reliant on the systems that are around you and more reliant on those smaller systems like what you can produce yourself or what you can produce as a community. And so maybe you're on a small block of land, but you dream of having acreage. You can start now with where you are while you're putting plans in place or while you're waiting for the opportunity to be able to buy more acreage or be able to upscale. But maybe that's never going to be a possibility for you. That doesn't mean that you can't adopt this as a mindset exactly where you are. And the guys that I'm thinking about that have done this on YouTube are Homestead on the Rock. You should definitely check out their gear because they are on a smaller block and they've adopted this mindset and they're building their homestead on a 1/4 acre. I
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the comments we got is actually that exact scenario.
So Scott wanted to tell us that what our content is presenting is realistic and achievable. And he's converting a lot of what we're saying into a small 400 square metre suburban block in Brisbane.
Wow.
So it's not just us that have done it. It's not just Homestead on the Rock on YouTube. There are people actually doing this all over Australia on suburban blocks of land, on small plots of acreage, or on large, unusable, not ideal land.
And it's not just land that's holding people back as well. Sometimes if you can get over the mindset of needing the perfect block of land, it's actually your skills and experience that becomes the next barrier, and that's our next myth. Myth number 3 is that you need to be an expert before you're allowed to start or have permission to start. And again, that's just not true. It's certainly not our experience, and it's certainly not the experience of this next comment.
So this is from Steve. He lives in the Toowoomba region, howdy neighbour, with similar growing country like ourselves. His wife and himself are new to farming and self-sufficiency, but we are just jumping in, boots and all, he says.
That's amazing. You know, our experience was before we got here, we went and worked on a rural property to gain the skills, but you don't even necessarily have to do that. We had no agricultural experience before applying for a farm job so that we could get it. And the point is, you can learn on the go.
Yep.
And you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to know everything. So much of how you do the homesteading journey is actually what you learn in the deep end.
Absolutely. And for us, so much of our learning has come from YouTube, and unfortunately, because there wasn't a lot of Australian homesteaders around then, it's a lot of American homesteaders that we've been watching on YouTube for 15 years.
Yep.
But now that this community is not just becoming bigger in Australia, with the people that you don't see on YouTube, but you are seeing a whole lot more channels like ourselves who are learning and who are building a homestead, and they're putting it on YouTube so that everybody else can be inspired as well. And one of the guys that I love is the Second Acre Homestead, Jamie and his family, who have absolutely no farming experience, but are giving it a crack. And it just reminds me of us, like 10, 12 years ago when we first moved to our homestead, our little 1.5 acre one, and we knew nothing. Like nothing. We just watched YouTube videos, and there's nothing like being put in the deep end to really, truly not just know it here, but to know it here.
So by all means, you know, go do the study, do a formal course, read books, gain experience, take an agricultural job if you can, but at some point you need to pull the trigger and realize there is no point or line at which you need to cross before you are given permission to be doing this. You're a homesteader when you say you're a homesteader. You're living the self-sufficient lifestyle when you say it's that way of life that's important to you, and the rest you're going to learn on the go.
And that's what we've learned from hundreds of people who are telling us in these comments that they are giving it a go themselves. So I say, go you guys, keep going, keep doing it. And for those of you who are like, I could never do that, give it a crack.
So land, experience, skills, knowledge, all of that is the practical barriers that often become limiting beliefs to starting this lifestyle. But then there's the emotional factor as well. Things like family not being on board with you, or even the challenge of doing it with young family. This next myth has the capacity to bring a lot of people undone and stop them in their tracks before they even start. And that's because it's about family, and more broadly, it's about support and the community, because this life is really hard to do without encouragement and support around you. That's where this next comment is just so awesome.
So this one's from Josh, and he says that they're kicking off their journey very soon. They're currently buying their first home. It took them nearly a decade to be able to do it. And they'll be on a small 5-acre block that has a seasonal creek, and they should be able to finally make something of the land that they live on. I love that. But here's what he said. Thanks for keeping us motivated in such an impossible feeling of a time. You have shared with us hope, and our kids are genuinely excited too.
You know, we didn't get the opportunity to do this part of our homesteading journey with young kids. I mean, 2 of our adult kids are out here with us now. But back in the days when we were learning and studying and dreaming about this, we were inspired by the likes of Justin Rhodes, and he was doing it, you know, on YouTube with his young family. And so we knew that it was going to be possible no matter kind of what age our kids were. And I'm grateful that a couple of them are here, but it's one of the questions we often get asked is, can you do this with young kids in tow?
I would always say yes, because the most important thing you'll ever do with your life is parent your kids and is raise your kids. And sometimes in the busyness of life, it's really easy to kind of forget that perspective. If you look at some of the guys on YouTube who are doing it, look at Hayes Homestead. Little Indy is 2 years old and she is a little firecracker, but they're doing it with a growing family. And there's a lot of other guys who are out there doing it as well. But more than that, there's a lot of people who aren't putting it on YouTube, who are doing this, having families. I'm thinking of some of our Patreon community right now that are doing it with young kids. And yeah, it's really hard, but they're committed to growing up, their kids growing up in this lifestyle. It's just another one of the challenges that they have to overcome.
Yeah, speaking of our Patreon community, the other aspect of this that I would say is just expand your thinking as to who your family and who your support network, I guess, really are. We're really lucky we started a Patreon community, and part of that is about supporting the work that we're doing and helping us to put more content out. And a lot of their names are scrolling. In fact, all of their names are scrolling across the screen right now, because I want to give a big, huge shout out to them, because we do appreciate their support. But what's also happened over there on that Patreon page has been this organic community that's developed, that's become this support network in itself. And I just want to point out, that's one community within the Australian homesteading community. You know, there's the Australian Homesteading Facebook group.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so it's also about finding those voices and finding that support. And I guess the other aspect of this family limiting belief would be if there's people within your family who aren't supportive.
Yeah.
And part of that is about starting the discussion and learning how to get family on board. And I love this next comment from Natalie because she started the discussion with her family as well.
Natalie says that our content gives her hope and inspiration that she can live a similar lifestyle one day. She's already having conversations with family members looking to do something together. So even if one of the things is that you're on your own, or you've got you're older and your kids aren't on board, or anything like that, it's looking to see who is around you that's interested, that you could collaborate with to actually make this dream happen. Because if you start talking about this, there's people out there who probably don't share it very much, but they would dream of a lifestyle like this. And it's amazing how quickly things can snowball once you find people who are like-minded and want the same things as you.
Yeah, and our story is we had to do this with family. We went in on this property with family, and you might not have that exact situation right now, but just start with what you can, where you can right now, in your backyard, on your balcony, whatever that looks like. And it's the discussion that leads to the action that leads to the inspiration. You'll be surprised who comes along on the journey with you when you just start. All right, now for the big one, money. By far, one of the biggest comments we get is, I would love to do what you guys are doing. We'd love to live that lifestyle, but we just don't have the money. It's not going to be possible for us. And I can understand that. I can appreciate that, because the reality is it is going to take some money, but it's not as much as you might think. You don't need stacks of cash to be able to start. And even if you want to take it to this scale, where you're talking land and livestock and all of that, and you don't have the money right now, well, how are you going to approach that strategically and break it down into bite-sized pieces and tackle it over time? And that's why I love this next comment.
This is from Jen. We've paraphrased this one. My partner and I have just bought land in the Darling Downs. Good decision. Love watching your videos. Thank you very much. Currently living on the Gold Coast and slowly building up for our 5-year plan to make the move, and getting a lot of tips from watching your YouTube channel. There you go.
I love that, because, okay, they're not able to do it right now, but they've taken the first step, one of the hardest steps, and that is getting the land. And sure, after you've got the land, then there's more financial investments that you need to do. Things like water tanks, for example, things like solar if you're going to be off grid, and then all of those other infrastructure costs. But if you were to tackle it over a period of time, and that was probably one of the things that was holding us back the most, wouldn't you say?
Well, we bought this land nearly 10 years ago, but we didn't really do much with it until the last few years. And when we had this plan in place to move out here, we wanted to make it a 5-year plan so that we had a decent amount of money behind us. And we pulled the trigger quicker than we wanted to. And you know what? We made it work.
Yeah, you can make it work.
It was a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, and there were some 2-minute noodles that we were eating sometimes, but the sacrifices that we made have pulled us so much further, so much quicker than we had planned as well. So
Yeah, and it might have been one of those things where if we had let it drag on too long, we might never have done it. And there's nothing quite like the deep end to make you think a little bit more out of the box about how you're going to do things. Because now that we're here and now that we've spent our initial capital, we're going to get pretty creative with our finances, like this next comment.
So this is from Lexi. She says, like us too, she lives in a rural, but it's a coastal area. She survives on a shoestring budget, collects lots of free secondhand building materials, and MacGyvers almost everything.
Yeah.
All power to your resilience and humour. Oh, thanks.
Well, do you know what? I think that's key, because what that speaks to is your mindset. You know, you can let any of these myths become the limiting belief that just stops you dead in your tracks or makes you think that you're just not going to be able to live this lifestyle. And I hope that what you've gained through, you know, the observations that we've shared, our experience, and some of these stories as well, is that you don't have to let these things be roadblocks.
Yep.
And it's actually more about mindset than anything else.
And it can be a long-term plan. Just because you have a dream that doesn't come to fruition within a year doesn't mean it's not valid, doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. So I think that long-term planning and being creative, learning how you can be creative with your finances in order to leverage more money, or, you know, starting a side hustle or whatever it is that you need to do. If the dream is big enough and you want it badly enough, you will do it. And just remember, you can never afford to get married, you can never afford to have kids, you can never really afford to buy a house. So if all of the big dreams are things that you can't afford, and we all do them anyway, so can you.
I guess the thing we wanted to most achieve with this video was just to share some of the inspiration that we feel privileged that has come our way. And
Yeah.
it's not super obvious when you look online, some of these stories, because even when we started out, like a lot of the inspiration we were taking was, I guess, from other homesteading YouTube channels, and the bulk of that content was probably that American homesteading style of content. And some of those channels had been around for years, and they had kind of made it, if you like, you know, like they had the big machines, they'd developed the land, they had the big house.
Yeah.
And it paints this picture of what homesteading is like, and you know, that you need to be like a millionaire to be able to do it.
I remember one of the first videos that we put up, somebody said, I think it was about our solar, one of the big capital investments that we made. It was terrifying because we didn't have loads of money, and we made that video, and one comment was, "Oh, where's your Ferrari parked in the shed next door?" And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So I think what I love about what's happening in the Australian homesteading community is we're not all full of cash. We're just trying to give it a go. Living in Australia is tough these days, and fulfilling your dreams in Australia is even tougher. So what I want you guys to do right now, and I know there are thousands of you because hundreds of you have been writing us in our email list and in the comment section about what you're doing. Why don't we all share our stories together? So down in the comment section, doesn't have to be your life story, just share a little of maybe what you've overcome or what your dream is or what you're planning to do or what you'd love to do, and let's support each other and build each other up so that we can all achieve our dreams together.
I hope you found this video inspirational, and if one of those myths had become the limiting belief that was holding you back from your homesteading or your self-sufficiency goals, then I hope we've busted that for you. If you're looking for more inspiration, we do have an email list, so check out the links down in the description if you want to jump on our email list, and I hope we get to see you in the next video.